Every hobby with enthusiasts has a tipping point, a moment that propels the hobby from one level to another, from underground to mainstream, from niche to mass market. In 2008, the release of the movie Iron Man introduced comic book characters and superheroes to a brand new audience. In 2004, the release of World of Warcraft changed online gaming forever. And it doesn't have to be just one single tipping point in that hobby. In the NBA, there were plenty. Dr. J flew through the air with an afro and showed young basketball players you could be flashy, play above the rim, while still being great. Larry Bird and Magic Johnson embraced their rivalry and took the league to a whole new level. Michael Jordan came along, you know what he did, and the Dream Team introduced the entire world to this beautiful sport. In 2005, the sneaker industry would reach a tipping point. Not the first one, but definitely a very important one. Once upon a time, the sneaker world looked very different. It was a hobby that you and a few of your friends in your local community may be into, or maybe you had some connections on online forums like Nike Talk, assuming you even had internet in the early 2000s. 2005 was before the first iPhone even came out, so remember, this was a time when if you had dial-up internet, you weren't exactly considered a recluse living off the grid. It was when baggy tees and pants were adopted by the mainstream for the first time. It was a time that almost seems like an impossible reality, like an alternate universe, an alternate timeline. Fighting over sneakers, train jackings to resell sneakers, they were not a thing yet. And I really wish they never became a thing. But in 2005, something happened that showed the world those things that you put on your feet would become so coveted that normal, seemingly normal, everyday human beings would be ready to whip out weapons for. The story begins with Jeff Staple, real name Jeff Ning, born in New Jersey, who was a two-time college dropout working as a graphic designer based in New York City. In March of 1997, he walked into Soho's 555 Soul with a t-shirt that had his own design that he actually screen printed himself. The manager of the store saw it, liked it, ordered a set of 12, and then the store union also took notice of the t-shirts and ordered a set. Now, just to put things in perspective, that is like me wearing this shirt that I just made up myself, going to a store, someone going, it looks pretty cool, and ordering a set of 12. It was literally a street culture. And this occurrence of events inspired Jeff to create his own brand, Staple, and he founded Reed Space, a store and art exhibition space located in the Lower East Side. Now, if you've never been to New York City or know much about the Lower East Side, it is a historic neighborhood traditionally made up of immigrant families, as it was a gateway for newcomers into the country. Throughout the years, demographics would start to change, but it was always known for its thriving art community and culturally rich heritage. I don't really believe that it was just mere coincidence that Reed Space happened to open up in the Lower East Side. Now, at some point, Jeff was designing covers for Fader magazine, which covered music, art, and culture, and he pitched an idea to the editor about sneaker resale culture. Now, at the time, resale culture was very different. There was no GOAT, no StockX. There was eBay, but eBay has always been not just about sneakers. It was about everything under the sun. And sneakerheads would actually have to fly to places like Japan, buy local exclusives, come back to America, and flip the shoes for profit, and vice versa. So Jeff Staple wanted to ask someone from Nike Japan, why were they holding out? Why not release these shoes globally? So he was sent to Japan, and he got in touch with someone who was leading the energy marketing for Nike Japan, Marcus Tayui. And fun fact, Marcus actually played a hand in the Concept Japan line as well as the Dornbecker line, but that is another story for another day. But what was supposed to be an interview turned into Tayui noticing Jeff Staple's work and going, you're designing covers for Fader, you're making noise in perhaps the most vibrant and culturally significant city in the world. We, Nike, and you should probably work together. Now, fast forward from 1998 to 2005, Nike was gearing up for the City Pack, a pack of Nike SB Dunks dedicated to 4 powerhouse cities: Tokyo, London, Paris, and of course, New York. And Jeff Staple, as you can probably guess by now, was commissioned to the New York colorway. Now, when people think of New York, what immediately comes to mind? The Statue of Liberty, Empire State Building, Times Square, Brooklyn Bridge, Wall Street, New York pizza, bagels, brats, wedge happening on the subway. I absolutely love New York City. I think it is the best city in the world, in my humble opinion. But one thing that doesn't immediately come to mind is the New York City Pigeons. Now, as of 2024, there were about 9 million pigeons. There is a National Pigeon Appreciation Day, and if you've ever set foot in New York City, it's literally impossible to ignore. Now, originally, pigeons were introduced to North America in the 1600s by Europeans for food and sport, and immediately New York City became a perfect playground for pigeons because of the density and the number of ledges on buildings that was similar to the cliffs that pigeons use. And ever since then, they've been ingrained into the city. Pigeons are also survivors, and for a city known for grit and resilience, you may have heard the phrase, if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. The pigeon was a perfect symbol. So instead of going down a more traditional route when designing something New York inspired, Jeff Staple chose to go a slightly more subtle and less glamorous route, something you encounter every day in New York City. And in his own words, Jeff chose the pigeon because he was hated on. People assumed his parents were some rich Chinese billionaires who funded his venture, and he would actually disprove this years later in his book, where he actually posted a photo of his six-figure debt just to show people he actually risked it all himself for his career. And he felt the pigeon was also hated on. He also wanted the shoe to be distinctly New York. Only New Yorkers would immediately get it. If you're from nearby New Jersey, Philly, or Connecticut, you still won't get it. This is a shoe inspired by New York for New Yorkers. So Jeff chose different shades of gray with a distinct orange on the outsole, representing the pigeon's colors and legs, and using nubuck as the material of choice to recreate the texture of feathers of a pigeon, and of course stamping his own seal of approval on the heel with the pigeon logo. And when you think about these colors in a vacuum, you're not exactly thinking these colors are groundbreaking. What made this shoe a must-have for diehards was the exclusivity. Only 150 pairs were made, and they were only sold in 5 shops across New York City, including Rival, Supreme, Recon, KCDC, and of course, Reed Space was one of them. And what made the pairs from Reed Space extra special was that those ones were numbered. So I wonder if those people that have the numbered pairs in hand could actually get together, and if there's like a duplicate of a number, one of you guys has some foo-foos. With hindsight, you're probably thinking, well, a shoe that exclusive with no online order or raffle system seems like an absolute recipe for complete disaster. In 2005, what was about to happen was unexpected. What happened was what the New York Post would call sneaker frenzy. The night before the launch on February 21st, Jeff saw a bunch of kids already camped outside, and he didn't think much of it. It was just some diehard sneakerheads who's in the know, and that's about as crazy as it would get. On the next day, over 100 people were already gathered outside Reed Space, and the NYPD was already there trying to control the crowd. Cops actually thought something more heinous was going on, because it was hard to believe this many people would care enough about a shoe to be doing this. It didn't make any logical sense back then, and it broke everybody's brains. There were even people who came with baseball bats, knives, machetes, because they were ready to go full hog crazy just to get this shoe. Now, thankfully, the NYPD was able to score people who were able to get the shoe out back and avoid the lunatics with weapons. And immediately on the same day, these shoes popped up on eBay for $1,000. But it doesn't end there. What happened the next day would propel and skyrocket the resale value of the Pigeon Dunks into a stratosphere that was unimaginable. Rachel Sklar, who lived on the Lower East Side, was a reporter for the New York Post, and she wrote a story about what happened and the riot that occurred the previous day. And the article was headlined, Sneaker Frenzy. Now pause a moment to think about who reads the New York Post. It wasn't diehard sneakerheads. It wasn't the youth on the bleeding edge of underground fashion and culture. It was your regular mom or grandma all across the country. The fact she lived there at the time and was able to get a story published in the New York Post with that headline made sneakers mainstream. CBS News also picked up the story, and a bunch of other national news outlets would cover it too. And you know what happens when a niche genre or a subculture or something kind of underground is covered by national news media in a sort of negative light because of the lengths people were willing to go to get the shoe? It becomes anti-establishment, anti-authority, countercultural. It makes this shoe even more coveted. So the value of the sneakers skyrocketed, Fugazis were now being produced, and from that point onwards, the Pigeon Dunks became one of the most coveted shoes in sneaker history. Right now on eBay, a size 10, my size by the way, for SB Dunks, I go up half a size, it's listed at $159,000. I don't think a shoe could be worth that much, but someone's crazy enough to list it, and someone's crazy enough to buy it. Size 11 is listed at $17,000. Anything below 5 figures, just assume it's a fake pair. So after the national news covered it, the shoe would be cemented in sneaker history, and sneakers in general would reach a tipping point. People realized what hype and exclusivity can do for a sneaker, what it can do for their resale value, and whatever you think about resellers, it's undeniable that whether you like it or not, It's part of 2025's sneaker buying experience. If the Pigeon Dunks never happened, would places like StockX and Go exist? Hard to say, but what the Pigeon Dunks did was prove a certain business model. Sneakers weren't just a regular commodity. Through storytelling, collaborations, and limiting supply, sneakers could be seen as a premium. They could be profit generating. They could be mainstream. And really, from that point on, the industry was changed forever. If the Pigeon Dunks never saw the light of day, sneaker culture may or may not be the same. Would it still reach a tipping point? Of course. Remember the Tiffany Dunks dropped later that year in August. Kids now from a newer generation may not remember the Pigeon Dunks, or they may just remember the 2017 or 2019 follow-ups that didn't quite reach the same level of attention and hype. To them, instant sellouts on sneakers for Travis Fragment Jordan 1 lows is the equivalent of people waiting in line camping out for dunks. But just like the Pigeon is an undeniable part of everyday life in New York City, the Pigeon Dunks and its impact is forever part of the modern day sneaker landscape. So that's it. Thanks for watching. So inclined. Let me know what you think of the Nike SB Pigeon Dunks. Like, subscribe, comment, all the good stuff. And remember, tomorrow may never come, so wear your shoes.